watching KNDU Channel 25. And this is NewsCenter 25 with Darren Watkins. Kyle Osborne with the weather. And Mike Alger with sports. And now NewsCenter 25.
Good evening. Area fire crews were kept busy tonight on 2 different house fires. Benton County firefighters responded to a fire that ended up gutting a house in West Richland. According to Fire Chief Lyman Nelson, the resident, Bud Carter, woke up with the house in flames, but he was able to get out of the house before he was injured. Carter was taken to Cadillac Medical Center for smoke inhalation, where he was treated and released later tonight. Benton County firefighters had to take extra time sifting through the charred debris. Carter had told firefighters that he thought someone else might be in the house, but after a thorough search, nothing has been found late tonight. There's no word on what caused that fire, but they will be investigating it later on tomorrow. And in Kennewick tonight, some hot ashes placed in a garbage can may have been the cause of a house fire. According to Kennewick Fire Chief Bob Gear, the resident Claude Kelly had put some ashes in a garbage can. Gear says by the time they arrived, the fire had climbed the south end of the house and on into the attic. From there, they had a tough time getting at the fire. But after cutting through the roof, they were able to get at that blaze a little easier and put some water to douse it out. It was finally contained to the area above the garage. No one was injured, and an investigation into the fires will both continue tomorrow. A Kennewick man was arraigned today on federal charges of allegedly causing potential home buyers to submit false information to receive mortgages. Dale LaPierre, that is, was brought before a Yakima federal judge today and faces 5 counts of fraud stemming from an investigation and a grand jury indictment. If convicted, LaPierre faces up to 25 years in prison and a $50,000 fine. Emergency rooms in the Tri-Cities are on the alert tonight to watch for people who complain of flu-like symptoms when we actually have meningitis. The admission of a man to a hospital here Tuesday brings to 7 the total number of Tri-City residents who have been diagnosed with that disease since October. 4 of them, all young men, have been diagnosed in the last month. County health officials say don't take those flu symptoms lightly, as Marianne McClary reports.
Someone in the Tri-Cities may be a carrier of bacterial meningitis, an inflammation of the covering of the brain. Ignoring the disease can result in deafness, paralysis, or even death. It is treatable with penicillin. The only way to catch it is to be around a person who has it for an extended period of time, much the way the flu or a cold is passed. In fact, symptoms of meningitis are so similar to the flu, it has health officials worried that the disease may spread.
This type of meningitis occurs every year in the wintertime. The problem is that it's possible for some individuals to be a healthy carrier, that they carry the organism in their throat without themselves suffering from the condition.
Dr. Kahn says the fact that 4 young men all about the same age came down with meningitis is indicative of how the disease started here, at a large party or another gathering where a lot of people were present, along with one person who had the disease and didn't know it. But it's all speculation at this point, and the health department is still trying to piece that puzzle together.
There's been no common denominator that we have found to explain the incidence of all 4 cases, except that they were all otherwise healthy males.
There are 2 more meningitis cases this year in the Tri-Cities than at this time last year, which makes health officials think the carrier doesn't know he or she has the disease. They've been in contact with everyone who had contact with the most recent cases reported and hope the meningitis spread has been nipped in the bud. But the bottom line is, don't panic if you have a sore throat or another one of the symptoms. Just see a doctor soon.
Incidentally, 3 of the 4 men admitted to hospitals have been released, and all but 1 are recovering fine. In other news tonight, the Energy Department came under heavy fire today for their actions to postpone the opening of the nation's first high-level nuclear waste dump. But did they break the law? The Energy Department? Well, that's what the senators from our state wanted to find out today, as Tom Ackerman reports.
Harrington came before the Senate Energy Committee to defend the DOE on 3 counts. The decision to slide the repository timetable by 5 more years, suspending the search for a second repository site, and the way DOE is developing an interim waste packaging plant in Tennessee, years before a permanent burial spot opens for business.
We need a 5-year extension. We ought to debate that now. We ought to look at the second repository timing. We shouldn't walk away from it at all. And this is the year to set this plan in concrete and make this thing viable, because we need it.
But the senators pointed out that the delicately crafted law specifically ordered a 1998 opening date and required choosing a second site by 1990.
The law is clear in this respect, and you've decided to ignore it, and you're trying to fuzz it over and pretend that you're following the law when actually you are not following the law.
Not for now, because I'm sure you can't find it. But would you please search and tell me where in the Act you find that ability to unilaterally, without amendment of the Act, postpone, explicitly set deadlines which are very clearly established, the numbers are there. You didn't come to us first and ask us. You went ahead and did it and told us. And that isn't the proper relationship between a board of directors and a CEO, in my view.
Harrington said if Congress didn't like his approach, it should reject his revisions to the mission plan. Instead of trying to vote down the latest revisions in Congress, though, DOE's foes expect the courts to spike the repository program far more decisively.
You continue on your present course, and the courts will move in, not just the Congress. And if this whole process collapses at that point, then your whole program will be junked, and we'll have to start over again anyway.
In Washington, D.C., Tom Ackerman, King 5 News.
On a related note, Oregon voters may soon get their chance to vote on the proposed nuclear waste dump at Hanford. Oregon lawmakers introduced a bill today that would put the issue before voters May 19th. The vote could be an important one if Oregon is classified as an affected state. That means the state's voters could put a veto on a decision to put a repository at Hanford, a veto that could only be overridden by Congress. Coming up, the Senate has released its findings on the Iran-Contra arms scandal, while the Benton County Jail underwent a close overlook today.
This is my hat. Wear it just about every day. Doesn't look too pretty, but suits me. This is my Yellow Pages, U.S. West Direct. Use it just about every day. I've learned from experience it has more information than any other book in these parts. Now, with all that wear, doesn't look too pretty, but it suits me.
U.S. West Direct, the one that gets used.
This is the Colt Vista wagon. It's made in Japan by Mitsubishi. It holds 7 people, and with optional 4-wheel drive, it can take them almost anywhere. And its fruits looks. Well, on days like this, it's just about the most beautiful car in America. The Colt Vista wagon, imported for Chrysler, Plymouth, and Dodge. It's all the Japanese you need to know.
The Senate committee report on the Iran-Contra affair concludes President Reagan did not know about the diversion of money from arms sales to Iran to Nicaraguan rebels. The long-awaited report was released late tonight, but as Steve Handelsman reports, this report will not be the last word.
President Reagan was in the hospital in July of 1985 having cancer surgery when he was first asked to okay U.S. approaches to Iran through Israel, according to the Senate Intelligence Committee report. But exactly when and how the president okayed the sale of arms to Iran remains unclear. Republican William Cohen.
The president was aware of the arms sales very early on. There is still a dispute that has existed from the time the testimony was taken between Bud McFarland's testimony, that of the White House, in terms of whether the president originally authorized the Israelis to go forward with the sale.
The Senate report indicates the main U.S. interest was in freeing hostages, and that when U.S. officials several times tried to back out, Israel urged the U.S. to keep trying. The report reveals for the first time that NSC staffer Oliver North wrote a memo last spring in which he stated $12 million from the arms sales would be used to fund the Nicaraguan Contras. The committee report says money North had diverted for the Contras has been traced to the British tax haven, the Cayman Islands, but that the trail ends there. North refused to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee as he did before other investigators, but Attorney General Meese testified North insisted no one knew of the Contra plan besides himself, John Poindexter, and Robert McFarland. The committee couldn't clear or implicate the president in the Contra diversion because it didn't have the facts, which is why two special committees are still digging. This is Steve Handelsman for NBC News.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State George Shultz said today the group that took 4 Americans hostage in Lebanon has strong ties with Iran.
Mr. Secretary, to the best of your knowledge, are the new American hostages in Beirut being the victim of a new group, for example, like the Hamadi family, and is that Hamadi family spoiling the weight negotiations at the moment?
I don't know the answer to that in a genuinely authoritative way, but it is our basic information that with whatever names may emerge, they are to a substantial degree linked together. And we also observe some very strong ties to Iran.
His comments came during an international news conference by satellite with reporters in Europe, Israel, and Japan. Rebel troops in Manila have given up their stronghold on a local television station and have turned themselves over to government troops. The 200 rebels left peacefully today, boarding 9 buses and were escorted out of the area. Philippines President Corazon Aquino said all of the people involved would be court-martialed. Aquino says these troops were members of an uprising planned by former President Ferdinand Marcos. Closer to home, the state jail inspector went through the Benton County Jail today with a fine-tooth comb. After giving Franklin County's new jail a passing mark yesterday, Benton County may get through this first stage without any problems. NewsCenter's Jim Hazen reports.
Yearly inspections of jails are nothing new, and Benton County was walked through the process today. According to State Jail Inspector Jim Miller, examinations of their daily operations and procedures are only done to help the facility operate more efficiently.
As we go along through the inspection process, I also offer up suggestions to them, possibly doing something a little better or a way I've seen somebody else doing it that might fit their particular scope of operations.
Though we can't release any information on the inspection yet, the problems at this jail are no different than at any other jail: overcrowding. And at this time, Benton County's jail is booked to its maximum, 109 beds. That's one thing the inspector is looking into. At this time, it looks like the jail will have room for 20 more prisoners.
And hopefully within the next 30 days, we'll have them installed. And we'll fill them up.
A finalized report won't be ready until sometime in February, but today's preliminary report doesn't show any real problems at the Benton County Jail. At the Justice Center, Jim Hazen, News Center 25.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at the new movie, Platoon, while Kyle brings us the latest weather word when News Center continues.
Hi, I'm Ed Lowe. Since I invented cat box filler in 1947, I've been improving it ever since. First, I added 2 deodorants to my kitty litter brand to control both kinds of odor. It's the only cat box filler that offers you this benefit. Now I've made it 99% dust-free for less tracking and better health for your cat. You might wonder what motivates a man like me. Simple. I love cats.
99% dust-free kitty litter brand leaves others in the dust.
This is the big one, Tri-Cities. Ennis Drexel Heritage's sale of winter is on right now. This is the time to save on quality furnishings for your home. And this year, during our spectacular sale of winter, save 15 to 40% and more. Imagine savings like this on quality furniture for your bedroom, living room, dining room, savings for every room in your home. This is the time to save, Tri-Cities, only at Ennis Drexel Heritage.
The new car show is over. You had a chance to look and compare. Now it's time to buy. Shoemate will roll back the prices during the Savings Blitz. From now through the 31st, you tell us how much we have to roll back the prices at John Shoemate. Save hundreds of dollars on every new car and truck. The bottom line: customer satisfaction, good service, a respected name. John Shoemate, Pontiac, Cadillac, Mazda in the Pasco Auto Park.